Are you God's chosen people? 7 signs you may be a Hebrew Israelite. Have you ever felt a deep sense of longing, a feeling of being out of place, scattered amongst the nations? Maybe you faced persecution, economic hardship, or even a loss of your true identity and wondered why God allowed this to happen. Here on this channel, we discuss the answers to these questions, understanding why the struggle is real for some groups of people. From the horrors of slavery to the anguish of persecution, their journey has been marked by both suffering and resilience. In this video, we will discuss the 7 signs of being a Hebrew Israelite and answer your most pressing question: am I one of God's chosen people? By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of your potential identity and the incredible legacy you might be a part of, and begin to understand why the struggle is real. Let's begin with the term Hebrew Israelites. It refers to individuals who believe they are the descendants of the ancient Israelites, the people who are central to many stories in the Bible. This lineage starts with the biblical patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. According to the Bible, God made a covenant with Abraham, promising that his descendants would become a great nation. This promise was reaffirmed to his son Isaac and then to his grandson Jacob, who was later named Israel. Jacob had 12 sons, and their descendants became known as the 12 tribes of Israel. The Bible highlights this special relationship in numerous passages. For instance, in Genesis 17 and verse 7, God says to Abraham,
"And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee."
Today, we see a resurgence of people now waking up to being Israel, from communities across the globe, from North America to Africa, reconnecting with their biblical roots. So, as we explore the signs of being a Hebrew Israelite, keep in mind this story isn't just ancient history. It's a living narrative that continues to develop through biblical prophecies detailing the end of days and the return of the Messiah. It's a story of a covenant, faith, and redemption of God's chosen people. If you're intrigued by this and want to learn more, stay tuned, because you will discover the signs of identifying the lost tribe of Israel, and you will begin to understand why the struggle is real. Now let's search through the first sign of being a Hebrew Israelite. One of the most compelling and tragic signs is the experience of going into slavery. The transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly brought millions of Africans to the Americas, is a dark chapter in human history. But how does this connect to the Hebrew Israelites?
Deuteronomy 28:32. "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand."
This scripture's depiction of children being taken away and parents helplessly longing for their return mirrors the heart-wrenching reality of African families torn apart by the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved parents saw their children sold to different owners, often never to reunite. The verse, "No might in thine hand," captures the utter powerlessness they felt, as they were unable to protect their loved ones or resist the systemic oppression that ripped their families apart.
Deuteronomy 28:48. "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee."
This scripture describes a condition of extreme subjugation and deprivation, where the Israelites, due to their disobedience, are forced to serve their enemies under the harshest conditions, experiencing hunger, thirst, and nakedness, symbolizing a complete lack of basic needs and dignity. This vividly mirrors the brutal reality faced by enslaved Africans, who were subjected to severe exploitation and denied the most fundamental human necessities. The imagery of a yoke of iron upon thy neck is particularly evocative, as it directly correlates to the physical chains and restraints used on slaves, representing both their physical bondage and psychological torment. This verse encapsulates the relentless oppression and dehumanization that enslaved Black people endured, emphasizing the extreme suffering inflicted upon them. Understanding this connection provides a powerful insight into the lived experiences of many African descendants that was spread throughout the diaspora today. It sheds light on why certain communities may feel a profound connection to the struggles and prophecies described by the Israelites. We've explored the tragic yet significant sign of going into slavery. Now let's delve into the second sign, the loss of identity and the immense challenges of maintaining cultural traditions after dispersion. The dispersion of the Hebrew Israelites across different nations led to profound disruptions in their cultural and religious practices. This scattering, as prophesied in the Bible, resulted in a gradual loss of identity for many.
Deuteronomy 32:26. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men.
In this prophecy, we see that the whole house of Israel would be cut off. Furthermore, the scriptures tell us that nations in times past have conspired against the children of Israel to cut them off from being a nation.
Psalm 83:3-4. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Verse 4. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Forced assimilation, cultural suppression, and the need to survive in foreign lands led many to abandon their traditional practices. Over generations, language, customs, and religious observances were forgotten or significantly altered. Even to this day, many descendants from the slave trade have no clue of who their ancestors are. Next, we will explore the third sign, suffering persecution. This sign was prophesied to identify the lost tribes of Israel, no matter where they are. Biblical texts and historical records document numerous instances of persecution. For example, during the Babylonian exile, the Israelites were taken captive and their temple destroyed. During the medieval period, the persecution continued in Europe. The Spanish Inquisition, for example, targeted black Jews by forcing Catholic conversions and expelling them from Spain. Many fled to Morocco and other North African countries due to Israel's disobedience to the covenant. Yah promised that persecution would be a sign and a curse that would follow them forever.
Deuteronomy 28:46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
The suffering of persecution is a significant part of the Israelites' warning for disobedience. By acknowledging and understanding this history, we begin to understand why Yah would allow the suffering of those spread throughout the diaspora.
Deuteronomy 28:45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedst not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee.
If you finding this video enlightening, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Also click that notification bell too. Trust me, you won't want to miss our next one. Now back to our video. Next, the fourth sign, being scattered among all nations. How this widespread dispersion has influenced the identity and legacy of the Hebrew Israelites. The Bible contains prophecies that many believe describe this exact experience. In Deuteronomy 28:64, it reads,
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
This scripture speaks of being scattered among all people from one end of the earth to the other, mirroring the forced displacement of millions of Africans who were uprooted from their homelands and dispersed across the Americas, Europe, and the Caribbean. As these individuals were transported far from their native cultures and communities, they often found themselves compelled to adopt foreign beliefs and practices, serving other gods that their ancestors had never known. This aspect of the verse underscores the profound cultural and spiritual disorientation faced by enslaved Africans who were frequently coerced into abandoning their traditional religions and practices in favor of those imposed by their captors. The verse encapsulates the deep sense of loss and identity crisis that accompanied the physical and cultural violence of slavery. highlighting the enduring impact of such forced assimilation in the struggle to retain one's heritage amidst pervasive oppression. Now let's examine the fifth sign, economic hardships. This sign reveals the financial struggles that have plagued the Hebrew Israelites across generations.
Deuteronomy 28:16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
This biblical prophecy speaks to the hardships encountered by Israel. In both the city and the fields, the verse highlights the pervasive struggles that the Israelites would face due to their disobedience. To this day, Black communities face poverty, discrimination, and limited resources for their daily lives. They've struggled with economic disadvantages and harsh working conditions throughout the diaspora.
Deuteronomy 28:44. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
This verse emphasizes economic control, where the oppressed are forced into dependence on their oppressors. For Black individuals, this manifested in various ways, including the sharecropping system, predatory lending practices, and economic policies that kept them in perpetual debt and poverty. Despite their labor and contributions, they remained economically disadvantaged and dependent, unable to amass wealth or exert financial power. These verses together reflect a comprehensive picture of the multifaceted oppression faced by Black people during slavery and its aftermath. They were cursed in all areas of life, subordinated in societal hierarchies, and economically exploited and marginalized. Their life followed the biblical narrative that was promised to happen to the children of Israel for their rejection of the covenant with our Elohim. Now let's explore the sixth sign, being called by a proverb and a byword. Bywords and proverbs are derogatory labels and names that have been used to demean and dehumanize the Hebrew Israelites throughout history. They have been subjected to numerous bywords which have been used to strip them of their dignity and identity, reducing them to mere stereotypes and slurs. Yah said that this would be a sign of Israel's disobedience to him and their covenant.
Deuteronomy 28:37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee.
From ancient times to the modern era, these derogatory terms have evolved, but their purpose remains the same: to undermine and oppress. Words that were meant to degrade have had a profound impact on the self-identity and social standing of the Hebrew Israelites. Here are some examples of negative proverbs that have been falsely attributed to Blacks throughout the diaspora. They're violent. This stereotype portrays Black people as inherently violent and prone to criminal behavior. It is often perpetuated by media portrayals that sensationalize crime committed by Black individuals, while ignoring the broader social and economic factors that contribute to crime rates. They're sexually promiscuous. This stereotype portrays Black people, particularly Black women, as sexually promiscuous and hypersexual. It is often used to justify the sexual exploitation and objectification of Black bodies and is deeply rooted in historical stereotypes dating back to slavery. Bywords, like proverbs, it can carry a negative connotations when they are used to perpetuate harmful stereotypes or prejudices about Black people. They tend to be more colloquial expressions that can be derogatory or insulting. Here are some examples of negative bywords historically used against Blacks. Nigger. This word is a highly offensive racial slur historically used to demean, dehumanize, and oppress Black people. It has been used as a tool of racial violence, discrimination, and oppression, and its usage is universally condemned as hate speech. The word has deep roots in the history of slavery, segregation, and racial violence in the United States, and it continues to evoke trauma and pain for many individuals and communities. Black. The term Black is often used as a racial or ethnic descriptor for people of African descent. While it is a neutral term in many contexts, this term has been used historically to categorize and differentiate people based on physical characteristics during slavery and colonialism. This categorization is imposed upon individuals whose identities, cultures, and languages were intentionally erased or obscured through the brutalities of the transatlantic slave trade. Now let's discuss the seventh sign, the spiritual awakening. The Holy Scriptures prophesied a waking of the Israelites returning to the covenant of Yah, which Yah will remove the curses and gather his chosen people out of all nations.
Deuteronomy 30:1. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. Verse 2. And shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart, and with all thy soul. Verse 3. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
These scriptures promise that God will return and gather Israel from all the nations he scattered them, which mirrors the profound longing of enslaved Africans wanting liberation and a return to their homeland. The belief that one day they would be freed from bondage, shown compassion, and restored to their rightful place. It encapsulates the enduring spirit of resilience and the quest for justice and reunification that has been a cornerstone of the African diaspora's journey, serving as a reminder of the divine promise of deliverance and the eventual triumph over oppression. If you found yourself resonating with these signs, you might be identifying with your heritage as a Hebrew Israelite. This journey of discovery is not just about understanding your past, but also about embracing your identity and responsibilities. Remember, the signs are just the beginning. Living by God's laws is the true path forwards, a fulfilling life, and operating in your purpose. Until next time, may your journey of discovery be enlightening, and know that the struggle is real.